but just like it was just the most peaceful and most like beautiful thing. And that's where like the redemption that I had like prayed for with my second, like fully came to fruition with this birth. This redeems everything about all of it. And just, yeah, like it was exactly what I needed. And even though it was crazy, and even though we still have 4 kids that are 4 and under, and it is still crazy and chaotic, and I can't imagine it any other way, because she's just the baby that we didn't know we needed.
Yeah.
And it's so amazing to just like be able to sit and reflect on her story and how much God just like brought so much healing to my body.
Holy Wild Birth is a podcast embracing the reclamation of giving birth rooted in God's original design, undisturbed.
Here, we share home birth stories highlighting God's presence as the great midwife, as well as conversations about all aspects of a holistic, spirit-led childbearing year, from the perspectives of myself, traditional midwife Lauren Hall, of Rooted in Eden Private Membership Association,
and me, holistic birthkeeper and photographer Brooke Collier of Sister Birth. Together, we are co-founders and facilitators of Hearth Mother Journey, where we are raising up the next generation of holy wild birth keepers.
To choose a holy wild birth journey is to consecrate all of your decisions unto the Lord and reclaim creation unadulterated by centuries of human attempts to control and improve upon what God has called good.
Please remember that birth is not a medical event, but a natural process, and we are not your care providers, so this should not be taken as medical advice. All right, so because our conversation was going longer than either of us expected, there's just too many juicy details to rush through them. So this is going to be our part 2 of Becky's birth stories. And so we're going to pick up with her 3rd pregnancy. And I think I kind of want to start with like how did that 3rd pregnancy, how did it come to be? We all know how it comes to be.
Right.
What I mean is timing of that and like all that. So let's start there.
Yeah. So like I had kind of said in part 1, between my first and second pregnancies, I was like just starting to get the hang of cycle tracking and like paying attention to my body and whatever.
Yeah.
And then I didn't get my cycle back until 10 months after I had the twins. And I was like, okay, like up until that point, I was just like, I don't even know how to do this. And I'm sitting in that space again right now at my littlest just turned a year, and I'm sitting in that space going like, I don't really know what I'm doing right now because I haven't had a cycle yet.
Right. It's really awkward when you're like breastfeeding and not quite cycling normally. It's like, how do I do this?
Yeah. So like we hit the 10-month mark and I started having cycles, and I was like, okay, so like now I really need to just pay attention and like check for signs of ovulation. I think I bought a thermometer by that point and was like trying to like track basal body temp, but just not doing a very great job with it. But just like confident enough in the like, okay, I'm like 99% sure I'm ovulating. So like, we just need to, avoid anything during this time period or whatever. And thought that was okay. And then it wasn't. And so my last period that I have had now, even still to this day, started the day that my twins turned 1. And I thought that I had tracked and was like, okay, yep, I ovulated. So like, we're in the clear, we're good. And I'm just not thinking anything of it anymore.
Yeah.
And get to like, I don't even remember when I did my first test, like just 2 weeks after their first birthday, or no, not 2 weeks after that, like 2 weeks after what I thought I ovulated. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to start a period. Like, I think I'm pregnant, but I don't even know how to tell my husband. I don't know how to feel about it on my own. I've kind of gotten to the point where I was like, okay, I think like I might just be okay if I hire a hospital midwife and I just like, if I just go the hospital route so that I'm already there, because I don't know what my body's going to do. And now we have the whole complication of a VBAC, and Like, I don't even know. I don't know what I want to do, but I don't feel like we're done having kids. And just kind of sitting in this like space of so much unknown and space of just like, well, we're really trying to prevent pregnancy. So I shouldn't have to have these thoughts. But like, if I were to get pregnant, what would we do?
Yeah.
And hello, I totally failed at the cycle tracking. And I took a test and it was positive. And I sat in my bathroom and was just like, I think I could have this baby in this bathroom. And I had not let myself think that up to that point. Like, I had not let myself even think, like, if I were to get pregnant, I could possibly have a home birth. It was just like, no, I think I'm settled on, like, I'll hire a midwife. I know there's some really good hospital midwives around and like, we'll just do it. And that was my first thought. And then my second thought was, I can't tell my husband that I'm pregnant because he's going to freak out. Like, we talked about like 2 years. We talked about no more. We did not talk about 1 year, like having a baby 1 year after having twins. Like, this was just, it was never an option. It was never on the table. And so I like took 2 more tests over the next couple of days to like make sure. And I think it was like 4 or 5 days later before I finally told him. And he like planned to get a babysitter for supper. And like, we went out to dinner and I was like, okay, I guess like this is it. Like, it was the week of Thanksgiving. And we were going down to visit his family. And I was like, I can't hide it. I really can't hide the nausea that I'm feeling. The just like, I feel like you can see it all over me. And I know you couldn't at that point, but like, I just felt like I can't hide this. So I'm going to have to tell them. So I have to tell him first. And so it was like the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. We went out for dinner and we were eating our appetizer or whatever. And he made a comment and I was like, I don't know how to tell him. And I finally just was like, I can't do that because I might throw up. And he goes, what do you mean? And I was like, yeah, I am pregnant and I really feel like I'm going to throw up right now. And he just kind of looked at me and I was like, please don't be mad. And he goes, I'm not mad. I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah.
I never thought that I would have a big family. I'm actually really thrilled. Like, I never thought I'd have a big family. He was 40 when we got married. Right. And so it was just like, I never thought that this was even possible.
Wow.
And like,
that's
and
cool.
Now we're having 4 babies in a very short amount of time.
Very short. Yes.
Very, very short. Our oldest turned 3.5, 5 days after our youngest was born. So very short amount of time.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, so he took it way better than I thought he would, which was just such a godsend. And then we went down to Ohio to visit his family over Thanksgiving and told them and got, the ridiculous things that people say when you have a big family and when you have kids close together.
Let me guess. You know how that happens, right?
Yep, %. And was this planned? I'm like, let's think about that. We are already drowning. We are already like feeling like we are so in over our heads. Do you really think that we like intended to do this? Like, could we have prevented better? Yes. But was it planned? No, absolutely not. Wanted and very much loved? Yes. But planned? No. And then we told my family that Sunday. So like we told them all on Thanksgiving. We told my family that Sunday. And I hadn't told my mom yet. And my brother, like pretty early into our family time together, made a comment of like, well, you better not have any more kids because something blah, blah, blah about our 3 already.
Oh no.
And I was just like, I can't say anything because I need to tell my mom first. Like, I have to at least whisper it to her first before I like break the news to this group. I'm like, well, it's a little too late for that. Like, oh, yep, we're already there. It's already growing inside of me. Like, yeah. So I like pull her aside and like tell her, and she just like completely shocked because like everybody knew that we were going to wait. Like that was the plan, right? And then I told everybody, and they were just like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah, like we're pregnant. Surprise. Like we're having another baby. Yeah. So kind of let all of that shock settle on our families and like our closest friends. I told like my work friends, I told at our work Christmas party, I just like wore a t-shirt that said "Marry and Pregnant" or something like that. Like it was super cute and super like obvious, but not if you didn't look at it. And just was like, you know, just like hanging out until people actually noticed. And it was like super, super fun. That was probably my favorite reveal of a pregnancy.
That's a cute way to do that.
It was so fun. I wore a sweater, like it was an ugly sweater night, right? So I wore an ugly sweater over it. And then I like took the sweater off to take pictures. And Dan ended up staying home with our other kids that night because he wasn't feeling well. And so I'm there alone and I'm just like, oh, and by the way, I'm clearly not drinking an alcoholic beverage right now. Like you see what's in my hand, right? Like this is what's happening. And it was so fun. And it was just, there was so much just like joy and excitement as opposed to the like, what the heck that we had gotten from my husband's family and just the like complete surprise that we had gotten from my family. And so like 3 very different experiences of telling people about this pregnancy. And it just kind of, you know, from there, it was just like, okay, yeah, like we're doing this. And, you know, Dan and I talked and I'm like, you might think I'm crazy, but I think I want to have this baby at home. And he goes, yep, I think you're crazy. I'm like, okay, well.
So it sounds like on some level, you and he had written off home birth as an option for you.
Yeah. I mean,
after those 2 experiences.
He had pretty much written it off after my first birth.
Yeah.
And just went along with it the second because of how like grounded in the fact that I was like, nope, it's going to be fine. It's going to be great. And because he trusted our midwife, because he trusted how she had handled everything with the first, that he was like, okay, if we're with her again, like we're fine.
Okay.
But at that point I was just like, I can't go back to that same midwife. Just not anything bad, but just feeling in my spirit, like she is just not the right provider for me. If I want to have a baby at home, she is not the person to go through that avenue. Like she's not the avenue to go through.
Well, and let's be honest about this too, that maybe this doesn't get thought about quite as much, but like an experience like your first one, especially, can scare a midwife too, right?
100%.
Where like they are also going on their own journey of having to recover in a different way, obviously, than you, of having to recover from and integrate that experience and like learn their own lessons from it. And like, they have some triggers and shock stuff that they have to work on too. And so now at this point, you've been through 2 somewhat scary, highly unusual pregnancies with her. So she has her baggage around working with you. Not against you, but just like, I'm sure she had stuff too, right?
Yeah. Well, and she had even told me at like, I don't remember where I was in my pregnancy with the twins. It was after we had found out it was twins, but before we had like been dismissed from care and whatever. She was like, I'm actually really kind of afraid of what your body is going to do during labor. I don't know what to plan for and prepare for. And I'm afraid. And Dan was like, yeah, me too. And I was like, I'm not. I'm actually like at the point where I'm really grounded and confident and don't want to hear you say that. Like work through it on your own, but don't come to me and tell me that you're terrified of what my body's going to do. But so she clearly had some stuff to work through. And
so you needed somebody who almost had a fresh slate, who wasn't carrying her own trauma about your past. Yeah. Right.
And she had like changed some of her policies and some of the things that she did because of my first birth. Like she didn't have a backboard at the birth house and she now keeps one there because they couldn't bring the gurney up the stairs to where I had the seizure. They had to like carry me down on a sheet. So she got a backboard so that if something like that ever happened again, that they had something to carry people down on. And like, that's, I mean, just one example out of many that I have heard, but she changed some things that she did because of my experience. And I was just, I walked into this pregnancy going, I can't hire her. I cannot ask her to be my provider. I honestly don't even want her to know that I'm pregnant, not in a malicious way, but just like, I don't need any thoughts from her surrounding my pregnancy at all. Like, I just don't want anything from her, anything about her. And
it's totally fair.
Not that big of a city. And there are enough people around that I know her, that see her, whatever, that like, she probably knew I was pregnant long before she would have seen it on social media. If she's even on social media, which I don't know, cause I don't follow her or whatever, but just like, I was just like, not that I'm hiding it, but she's not a person that I need to tell that I'm pregnant. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't want her. This one other midwife that we had interviewed our first pregnancy had like moved their office a long ways away. And I was like, well, that doesn't really work for us. the two others that we had interviewed when I was pregnant with the twins, but before we knew it was twins, were just like, I didn't really jive with either one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I have one option that I know of, and I know there are more, but I have like one well-vetted option, someone that a friend is using that like I've heard really good things about. And this midwife loves the Lord, but just like if she is not willing to take me on as a client, I don't know what we're going to do, because it feels like she's our only hope. And so I talked Dan into at least coming and having a consult and like chatting with her and just saying, hey, like if you think I'm absolutely insane and you would not take me on as a client, then tell me that to my face. But if you think that we could do this together, you and me, then tell me and we'll go forward with it. And he didn't tell me until after the appointment, but he was coming along to be my emotional support when she told me I was crazy.
He was sure that she would say that.
He was so sure that she was just going to be like, no, with your history and with this being a VBAC, like, nope, absolutely not. He was sure that was going to be her response. And she was like, I don't have any fear around your story. Your body did something. And yeah, we can monitor and we can look at things, but like your body did something once. That does not mean that it's going to do it again. And just because you had a C-section because of an induction doesn't mean that your body is not capable of going into labor and doing everything on its own. I have no fear around this.
I love that.
And that was what both of us needed to hear. And then we're walking out of the appointment. And she's like, just so you know, I have like 2 openings left for your due month. And I'm going on a 3-week vacation, like a week after you're due. And I'm like, okay. And so we walked out. And before we even got to the car, Dan looked at me and he was like, do you want to just turn around and go back in and tell her that we're hiring her? Or do you want to like call her when we get home?
Wow.
I was like, wow.
He got on the same page quick.
That was not what I was expecting. Yeah. But he got on the same page so quickly. And I think it was just her faith and the fact that she loves the Lord, the fact that she was so just like peaceful about everything. She's like, she let me share my stories, was basically like our initial consult was like me sharing my stories and me sharing like, hey, this is what you're working with if you allow me to hire you.
Almost like, does this scare you off? Like I'm going to tell you everything.
Okay,
all my cards are on the table.
Yeah.
If you're not scared off,
then I think we're good.
Yeah.
And so we both looked at each other like, we have no idea how we're going to afford this. No idea how this is going to work or what it's going to look like. But like, we're going to hire her. And we did. And it was exactly what I needed. Just like the fact that she prayed with us at every single appointment. And she was just so like peaceful about everything. And like, yeah, we did some labs and we checked my urine for protein at every single appointment, but she didn't like push me into any interventions. We like talked through them all. She's like, here's why I would recommend it. Here's why I would not recommend it. Like true informed consent. Right.
Awesome.
And it was just so much what my heart needed and so much what my body needed to just be like, yeah, I can do this.
Right.
And it was my smoothest pregnancy by far. Like nothing out of the ordinary happened. I think I had trace urine protein like 1 or 2 times. And instead of like freaking out about it, she just like sat down with me and she's like, hey, there's some trace protein in your urine. Can you tell me about what you ate this last week? And the one time I had been sick, like I had had a stomach bug and I had been throwing up for like 3 days. And I'm like, well, I didn't really eat anything for like 3 days straight, right? I'd thrown up for like a day and then hadn't eaten anything for like 2 days. And she's like, well, of course you have protein in your urine. Like that is just like the most obvious thing ever. But she was like looking at me as a whole person.
Right.
And looking beyond just wonky lab results and beyond my history and just looking at me like in the present as a person and like, okay, so let's figure this out.
And she just got curious with you, right? Like, let's ask some good questions and get the whole picture here before we jump to conclusions or.
And her curiosity and her like unwavering steadiness and her unwavering faith were just like that rubbed off on me so much. Of course.
Yeah.
Right. Cause I walked into this pregnancy pretty afraid.
I think about like nervous systems and how we tend to regulate, like we sync up with the nervous systems of those around us. So I can imagine what a difference it made for you to have somebody who was so fearlessly holding trust, and she had her nervous system regulated around the whole situation.
Yeah.
And then that was like probably catching for you.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure had an impact on you. I mean, physically as well as mentally and emotionally.
Yeah. Like she knew my story coming in, but she hadn't lived it with me. And she was able to step outside of it and be like, okay, like this is what we need.
She had just the right amount of distance from it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was so good.
And that faith factor that you talked about, I think, like I know who you're speaking of, and she's known in our area for being a woman of deep faith. Yeah. And I mean, that should make a difference, right?
Yes.
And it sounds like it really did.
Yeah. And she was just exactly who we needed for this pregnancy. And then like the biggest complication was trying to figure out my due date, because I thought I knew when I had ovulated. And so then I'm like, well, our due date is either based off of this day or this day. And they were like a week apart. Right. And I'm like, so I don't actually know when my 40 weeks is, but it's probably like less than a week before you actually leave on your vacation, if we're just guessing based off of like, you know, whatever, all of the factors combined. Yeah. And so we ended up, I don't even remember if we settled on a date or if we just kind of settled on like late July. And she was leaving the 25th, like the night of the 25th of July is when she was leaving. And I'm like, okay, like I really want her there. Like I'm really, really enjoying her care. I don't know who she has as a backup midwife. She had assured me all along, like, yeah, if you don't have baby by the time I leave for this trip, I have backup midwives and you'll be in great hands and it'll be totally fine. And in my head, I thought it was the midwife who was like finishing up her student midwifery with her when I started. And so I just kind of like had that in the back of my head, like, oh yeah, it's this person. I've met her, like whatever. And then at my last appointment with her before she left on her trip, she told me who the backup midwives were. And I was like, oh, I've never met either one of them. And I have only heard of one of them. And the only person that I know that has used that one person ended up transferring. And so it started this like spiral again in me of like, okay, really hope that I don't have to transfer. I don't really know. And so I like reached out to this friend and I was like, can you tell me a little bit more of your birth story? Tell me more of your experience with this midwife. Like she is one of the 2 backup midwives if I don't go into labor before my midwife leaves town. And she's like, yep, it was just not the right person for me. This is why we transferred. This is all of the things that went on. She's great. I really like her. And she's kind of like spoke a little bit more truth into me of like, yep. And then the other midwife was the backup for the midwife that my friend had transferred under. And she had also been at the birth. Gotcha. And she's like, you know, it was what it was, but it wasn't anything to do with them as a midwife team. It was her own birth story. And so I kind of, you know, I was like freaking out because I'm like, this isn't what I planned. Again, like things are so unplanned with not being on par with what I think I'm getting into when I have a pregnancy. But just like feeling peace at the same time of just like, I trust this midwife that I've been seeing my whole pregnancy. And if I trust her, then I have to trust her people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And to back up just a little bit, when we found out we were pregnant, my husband was like, how soon can we have an ultrasound to see if it's twins? Because that's like the first thing in both of our minds is like, is it one baby or is it 2? And I just didn't tell him that we could have done a really early ultrasound. It was like, I mean, yeah, we can do our anatomy scan like right at 20 weeks and we'll just like make sure then. So we like walked into our anatomy scan and was like, he was there with me this time. And he was like, please just tell me that it's one baby. And like, just the relief that both of us felt, like, not that we couldn't have handled twins again because, you know, we had already done it once. We would have been able to figure it out. But again, we were going to have 3 under 2, 2 under 3, or 4 under 3.5. Just the relief of like knowing that it's one baby. And then like the way that I was able to care for my body through this pregnancy was just, even in the midst of things being crazy and chaotic at home, having 2 little tiny humans who were still fairly dependent on me for everything. And I was pumping up until like, I think I was just shy of 2 months pregnant when my milk dried up, but I had been like pumping round the clock for them. And so just like all of those factors going into this pregnancy of like, okay, it's not twins. My body is like responding and listening. I'm able to, even with like subpar nutrition, like maintain things where they need to be. and just like, again, so much peace and so much just faith around this pregnancy and the fact that my body would be able to do what it needed to do. And I think my midwife said that to me so many times. She's like, I have so much faith in your body and I have so much more faith in God. Of like, he can do this and
so good.
He's going to do what he's going to do. And we talked about like, you know, if there's a transfer, what do we do? And what hospital do we go to? And we're 2 minutes away from an ER. So if we need, like, if there truly is an emergency, like we go there and like being prepared, but not planning on it. And even just the way that we talked about like preparing for a transfer was so much different from like my past 2 lived experiences. Right.
Yeah.
So my midwife left town. I had like 1 contraction a day that whole week. I was somewhere in the 39 to 40 week range. I don't, like I said, I don't actually know how far I was, where I was. And I think that was like part of God's grace. It was just like, you don't have to know. You don't have to have a day that you're like looking at saying, well, this is the 40-week day. And that was one of the things with when I interviewed midwives when I was pregnant with the twins. One of them was like, I would not want you to go over 40 weeks with your history of eclampsia, just because of like added risks and added whatever complications that could arise. And so just having her be so just like, you know, this baby is going to come when it's ready, and it's going to come how it's ready, and it's going to come where it's ready, and it's going to come with whom it's ready. And whether that's me or not, like, yeah, I really want to be there. Like, she had walked through this whole pregnancy with us, had walked through some healing again, like through this pregnancy, through the healing in my body and regulating in my nervous system. She's like, yeah, I really want to be there. But if I'm not there, I know you're in really good hands. And so, yeah, so I had like 1 contraction a day and she left town. It's like,
it's not going to be you.
It's not going to be you.
Unless the baby waits 3 more weeks, which is highly unlikely.
Which at that point I was like,
you don't want to wait.
No way. Could I be pregnant for 3 more weeks? Oh my goodness. Like, no, can't do it. And then I had my friend who had been at the hospital with us for the twins' birth, like on call as a doula-ish person. She's not really a doula, but she has birthed her own babies and has supported a couple other friends in labor. And just like, she's the kind of person that I wanted there. My midwife left town on a Thursday night and my friend was out of town that weekend for her anniversary. And then I think I had even asked you, Brooke, of like, hey, what would it look like last minute if I needed you, if I needed some like extra support, if I want somebody there that I know, like, what would it look like? And you're like, well, I'm actually out of town that weekend.
That's right.
And I was like, okay, God, like nobody that I want is around this weekend. Wow. I guess if that means I'm having this baby this weekend, then it is totally in your hands. And it is totally like, it's going to go how you want it to go. And that, I think that's the point where I was just like, able to fully surrender that birth and able to just be like, any of the people that I would have wanted there, any of the people that I would be comfortable with, that I know that like I've walked through my story with, or that I would be comfortable having around, like none of them are available. And I feel like this baby's going to come this weekend, but I was also in such denial that I was actually going to have a baby at home, that I was actually even ever going to go into labor and have birth, that I like had nothing planned, nothing set up, nothing prepared. I had all of my birth supplies just like in a tub in our dining room, but I hadn't even taken the pool out of the box. Had just like, was just at this point of like, it's never going to happen, but it's going to happen when I don't want it to, or whatever. It was just like this weirdest space to be in.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And so I was at my parents' house that Saturday, and I remember like as we were getting out of the pool, I remember having a contraction and just being like, oh, that was like
the swimming pool.
Like swimming pool.
Here.
Yeah, like giant swimming pool
also
in the backyard.
Pools we talk about in the show.
Sorry, yes. To clarify, I had been swimming with my kids. Yeah. We were getting out of the pool. My mom was there, and I was like, oh, like that was a contraction, like more of a real one than I had felt anything up to that point. And then there wasn't any more. Like there was no more feelings of anything. And I was just like, okay, whatever. Like it was just a thing. It was just one, like my body's doing things, baby's moving, whatever. Like we'll get ready and it'll be some point. And I had an appointment set up like the following Friday with one of the backup midwives to have like a prenatal, right? To like actually meet her and like see her and like talk with her before I had this baby, fully expecting that it would be sometime after that. And so we get all the kids in bed and I'm sleeping and I wake up at what I thought was 12:30, but found out later it was actually 1:30. Wake up from dreaming about water to being wet. And I was like, I'm 99.9% sure that I did not just pee myself. I think that my water broke. And so I like get up, I'm really quiet because Dan is still sleeping. It's 1:30 in the morning, like go in the bathroom, kind of rinse myself off. It broke enough that I was like fully wet, but that the bed was still mostly dry.
Okay.
So I got myself cleaned off, found a Chuck's pad in my like random piles of all the things, laid it down on the bed and tried to like go back to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I laid there for like 5 minutes and I was like, this is not going to happen. I can't go back to sleep. And
But
so
you weren't having contractions.
I wasn't like fully aware of having contractions at that point. I feel like I had to have been, but maybe not. I don't know. So I went back in the bathroom. So I was like, I don't know. I feel like I just need to go to the bathroom again. And like fully emptied everything out of my body. Didn't throw up, but like fully emptied everything out of my body. And then called the midwife. And I had 2 phone numbers of the 2 backup midwives. But I was like, well, I'm supposed to call the one that I'm seeing for an appointment next week. So I'll call her. Called her from the bathroom and she didn't answer her phone. And I'm like, nope, this is not okay. Like, she's supposed to answer her phone. She's a midwife. She's on call. She knows that I could go into labor at any time. So I called the other one. She's like, okay, well, I actually just got off the phone with another mama who's in labor. So I'm going to call the other midwife and I'm going to figure out like which one of us can come kind of check things out with you. And I'll call you back in a few minutes. And she was like super calm about it and just like totally chill. And by the time she called me back, which was maybe 15 minutes later, I was already having a hard time talking through contractions. So they like started started strong.
Escalated so fast.
And somewhere in here, I also woke up my husband and had him call my parents. And so the plan was for my mom to come over. If it was the middle of the night, she was going to come over and just find a place to sleep, but be there for the kids if they woke up. If it was daytime, she was going to come just take our kids and go to their house. Because as much as I thought it would be cool to have my kids at my birth, I also was like, if there's any kind of emergency and they're all still really young and they need a lot, I can't have that distraction. So Dan called my dad and woke up my mom and was like, it's go time. And they live like 35 minutes away from us. I talked to the midwife again while I was having contractions and she could hear like how much I was working through them already. And she was, I think, just over an hour away from our house. I was like, okay, it sounds like I'm going to head to you first and then I'll go check on my other mama, like, after we know that things are okay with you and whatever. I'm like, okay. And then I had Dan like trying to start timing contractions because not that I needed to know how long they were, but there was this bit of curiosity in me of like, I just like feeling like this is a lot. And I want to have some kind of frame of like how long they are, how close together they are. It felt like a lot, but I also was like, I don't feel like I have felt this part of labor or this kind of labor before. I don't remember feeling like this with David's labor.
Sure.
I remember it feeling like spaced out and like just very prolonged, right? And then I never got to this point laboring with the twins. I had consistent contractions, but they were never like totally stopped me in my tracks. Just like there was just something in me that was like, this feels different. So I ended up I had my husband grab some like foam pads and put them in our shower. So in the bathroom that I had taken the pregnancy test in, I got on my hands and knees in the shower and we had like a handheld shower head. And I was like, just spray hot water at my back. Like I don't have a pool set up and that water just sounds really good.
Yeah.
Like really, really just what I want. And so he did. He just like stood kind of in the doorway of the shower and was just like spraying water on my back and also trying to time contractions until I got to the point where I was like, it's just not stopping. Like, I can't tell you when to stop and when to start because there's really there's not enough time for me to tell you go and stop and go. And like, it's just there's nothing there. Like they were so on top of each other. And I don't know, somewhere in there, I got to the point where I was like, I need to be submersed in water. And I can't even attempt to do that up here because there's like a 4-inch lip. Like it's a shower. It's not a tub.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's no way to be in the water. I can have water on me, but not be in the water. It's like, okay, so if I try to go in our bathtub downstairs, it's not big. It's like a standard size tub, but it's a little like extra deep. So like maybe I can get in the water enough that it'll feel good. And so he like turned off the shower. I just stayed in there on my hands and knees, and he like went downstairs, turned on the bathtub, got it like as hot and filling as much as he could, and then came back upstairs and like helped me down there. I get in the tub, and I couldn't even maneuver my body into a way that like was remotely comfortable. But I think like between coming down the stairs and getting into the bathroom and trying to be in the tub, I already had like 4 or 5 contractions, just like nonstop on top of each other. And so I got out, had him bring the birth ball into the bathroom, and got like on my knees and like leaned forward, right? So like hands and knees, but up on a ball, and just like digging my elbows into it. It's like, okay, this position, like it feels okay. And I can move a little bit. And yeah, I was like, I need to poop. I already pooped, but I feel like I need to poop again. I sat on the toilet, had like 1 contraction, and went, if I stay here, this baby is coming out on the toilet. And I do not want this baby to like fall into my toilet. This is not what I want. Midwife called at some point when we were in that downstairs bathroom, when I was like trying to be in the tub, trying to be comfortable, whatever. She called and Dan talked to her. And I did not find out at that point that she had not left her house yet, but she was still an hour away.
My word.
And so if you're keeping track of times, I woke up at 1:30, called her at like 1:45. She was going to be on her way, or talked to her around like 1:50, 1:55. She was going to be on her way soon. This was at like 2:20, 2:25 that she called back and had not left yet, right? Shortly after that, my mom gets there, and I'm like, I don't want to have this baby in the bathroom. And there's not like, it's not a huge bathroom. There's not a ton of room. I know it could be done and I know it would be fine, but I don't want to be in this bathroom. We're on a hard floor. Like I want to be on carpet. I want to be where there's a little bit more space around me. I think my head was also like, if there's any kind of emergency, like I want to be somewhere where people can easily get to me, not like in this small enclosed space. Right. And so I had them like find Chuck's pads and blankets and like throw them out on our carpet. My mom and Dan like walked me out to our living room, brought the birth ball out. I kind of got back in the same position. Mm-hmm. So like hands and knees, elbows digging into the ball. And my mom goes upstairs to just check on the kids. And thankfully they were all asleep. Like miracle of miracles. They were all asleep and they all slept through the whole thing, which was just insane to me because I was so loud. I was so loud. And they were just like, yep, totally. They just slept through the whole thing. And the twins had not really been sleeping through the night.
Oh, I see.
Like they were still up most nights at least once.
Wow.
And they didn't wake up at all, which is just crazy. So she like came back down and kind of settled in the chair, like in the other room, but close enough that she was like there, and had a few more contractions, whatever. And I remember like hearing the door, is it still going? Okay. Like hearing the door open, hearing her say like, I'm Becky's mom. She's right through there. Or hearing Dan, no, because Dan was right by me. He was like counter pressure on my back. And this midwife walks in that I had never met before, had only heard very little about. I knew she was a Quaker, or I knew she dressed Amish is I think the words that I had gotten from my friend. So I knew that she was going to come in looking different from what anybody expected, but I hadn't even imparted that information to anyone. So she walks in and my husband is like, who is this Amish lady coming in our house? Like, what in the world is going on? And she walks in, she's like, okay, yep, you are you're going to have a baby in the next few minutes.
You're like, duh.
And I'm like, yep. I think I had already in my brain been like, we are not prepared for an unassisted birth, but like, I just push the baby out and we keep it attached to me and we put it on me. Yeah. Like that's all we need to do. Right.
Yeah,
that's what we need. And I was so in labor land that I had no clue that she, hadn't left her house, was really far away, whatever. But she walked in, she's like, okay, I'm going to just like really quick check heart tones because it feels like I have a minute to do that. Didn't even ask to check my cervix because it was very apparent as she walked in from behind me that like there was no need, right? Absolutely no need. It was like, oh, I am walking into a birth, not to a laboring mama. But checked heart tones, everything was good. And she's like, okay, do you want to catch your baby? And I looked at her and I was like, I can't move. There is no way I can change the position that I am in. Like, absolutely not. Do I want to? Yes. But can I? No. And then she asked my husband and he was like, I think if I take my hands off of her back, she's going to kill me. And I was like, yep. So he was like counter pressure on my lower back. And so she's like, okay, with your permission, then I'm going to catch your baby. On this next contraction, baby's going to come out. Like, I did not push. I did not consciously make an effort to get this baby out of my body. And it was the contraction after she walked in the door, head just came out, body followed, like the smoothest thing ever.
Unreal.
And she like caught the baby right behind me and I was like, okay, like I'm going to pass baby through. And we had enough conversation for her to know that we didn't know if it was a boy or a girl and that I wanted to be the first one to find out. Or the first one to say it. Sure. Like, yeah, they could all see, right? But I wanted to say it. And so she caught the baby, passed baby through my legs, and I just kind of like sunk back. I had been up on my knees. I just kind of sunk back and like lifted baby up and just started crying. And it was another girl. And like, not that I don't love my son, but like God just knew that I needed a peaceful birth and that I needed a girl and that I needed to birth her vaginally, like without any kind of assistance, without any kind of hands on me, people doing anything. Like literally, she just walked in and caught my baby. And it was so incredible. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I was also so exhausted because it was the middle of the night again, right? But so looking at timing later, right? She walked in the door at 3:10, 3:11 maybe. Baby was born at 3:14. So I woke up to my water breaking at 1:30 and she was born at 3:14.
Not even 2 hours.
Not even 2 hours.
Unreal. That's so fast.
Like, especially because like my first, I had labored for close to 12 hours of like steady, consistent building contractions before the seizure. And the twins, I had labored for over 12 hours before, like between when we started the induction and when they did the epidural. And so like there was not a single bone inside of me that was like, oh, it's going to be a quick, easy birth. Like everything in me was prepared for this to be like super long and super complicated and for things to not go as planned. And God was just like, I know what you need. Here you go.
Surprised you in the best way.
Yeah. Just like handed me my baby. Like I didn't push her out. I didn't do anything. She just like, she was just there. And it was so intense, right? So fast and so intense. And like, it took me, I think even like a full day of her being on me for me to be like, wait, that really just happened, right? Like, I'm not just like dreaming and imagining like this 24-hour time period. Like this was actually real and this is what happened, right? And it took like probably a full week to like fully integrate into my system of like, that was really, really fast. And that's like faster than normal and way better than I could have ever expected, wanted, planned, prayed for, hoped for, anything. And yeah.
So good.
And then like, I don't even know, like so she on her way, realizing that she like might actually miss this birth, called another midwife to come. And that midwife showed up after I gave birth, but before the placenta came. So sometime in this like 20 something minute time period, I think it was like 20, 25 minutes between birth and placenta. So that midwife showed up somewhere in there. And then the assistant to like the midwife that I had hired was also on her way.
Okay.
And she didn't show up until after I birthed the placenta. But because she was still like in school and assisting, whatever, like she couldn't be the primary person.
Yeah.
But she was like, well, I've been with you through this whole pregnancy. So like, I'll come, like the midwife will call me and I'll come as soon as I can, you know, like whatever too. And so like only one of them was there before I actually gave birth, but there were like people all coming toward me, but just, you know, God's grace of just like, he knew that I not needed, but that it would benefit me to have someone there besides me and my husband to catch the baby. And besides my mom had all natural births, but in a hospital. And so she she's familiar with birth. She's had 4 birth things of her own, 5 kids of her own. She actually found out she was having twins after the first one was born. So we joke that I found out way sooner than that I was having twins.
About this part of your story.
I sometimes forget about it too. But yeah, I found out way sooner that I was having twins than what my mom did. She found out after her first was born.
After the first twin
was born that she was having another baby. So she was way familiar with birth, but my youngest sibling at the time was I think they were 33, 34, 35. I don't know. So she hadn't had babies for 30 something years, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how old I am or how old they are right now.
But needless to say, she wouldn't necessarily have been the person to jump in and be like, I got this. I'm going to catch your baby for you.
Right. Yeah. She was more there for the kids and just happened to also only be the other person there. So God's grace was I know that you want another, a trained professional there. And so I'm going to give that to you, but not in the way that you're expecting.
At the very last minute.
The last 4 minutes, if that. I don't think it was even 4 full minutes that she was in our house before I gave birth. And then, the other 2 came and we just had the most precious, she just laid on the floor with me next to my next to me and my baby. Yeah. Just laid on the floor with me in between the birth and the placenta coming. Just laid there with me and was we can try to get her to latch or just hold her up close to you. I'm okay, sure, if that's supposed to help with the placenta, but my first, I don't actually know. I'm assuming they pulled the placenta out with my first because of all of the emergency, right? And then the twins, obviously it was part of the surgery. They just took it out.
So this was your first placenta birth experience.
Yeah, there was no waiting for a placenta, right? It was just we just take the placenta out and suction all the blood out and you still bleed afterwards, but not nearly as much. And so this was my first full on I'm experiencing the birth. I'm experiencing the birth of the placenta. I'm experiencing the golden hour. Just the amount of peace. It was just it went from me screaming, right, to just peace and stillness and quiet. And just as the other people walked in, it was just just a layer of peace and calm in the space. And just congratulations, you did it. Great job. As opposed to all of the chaos of so many people around me the last couple times.
Right.
And having had all of our 3 previous in the NICU, there was just this moment of wait, I get to keep my baby with me. I get to hold her and no one is going to take her away from me. No one even has to touch her right now.
Yeah.
I get to snuggle her and lay on the couch and yeah. And they did, her newborn assessment, at my feet. A couple hours later, I was just laying on the couch and they just put her on the couch right by my feet and just checked her. Everything was good. And then I was laying on the couch when our kids woke up in the morning and my mom carried the twins downstairs and they got to see Sissy and they got to see that there was a baby and hung out for a little bit and they all, wanted to hold her. And I'm oh, you're 1.5. We're not doing that. The then 3-year-old did hold her very briefly, with a lot of supervision, but just it was just the most peaceful and most beautiful thing. And that's where the redemption that I had prayed for with my second, fully came to fruition with this birth.
Yeah.
Just this redeems everything about all of it. And just, yeah. It was exactly what I needed. And even though it was crazy, and even though we still have 4 kids that are 4 and under, she just turned a year last week as we're recording this. She just turned a year. But we still have 4 kids that are 4 and under, and it is still crazy and chaotic. And I can't imagine it any other way because she's just the baby that we didn't know we needed.
Yeah.
And it's so amazing to just be able to sit and reflect on her story and how much God just brought so much healing to my body, so much healing to my husband, who you know, his background growing up is that his mom had three C-sections, and they were all 3 years apart. Like, he had no like understanding of natural birth at all. And so he was like, you know, we did some prep work with our first pregnancy, and he's like learning all of these things. And he's like, oh, I had no idea about like anything. And then to have the experiences that we had, he was like, maybe birth just doesn't work. And then to be able to see this and experience it and be like, no, even after complications and even after surgical birth, like the body still can do this and like still can have this beautiful experience and still like does exactly what it's designed to do. And that was like, I think it was really healing for him too, to just like, you know, be able to be a part of that and be there and like, you know, not have to sit there and be like, well, is she going to have a seizure again? Is she going to like, is there going to be another emergency? Like, you know, he sat in the ambulance holding my like limp hand going, I don't know if I'm going to lose her. And went from that to like, you know, snuggling me and our newborn on the floor at our house being like, this is just so cool. Like, this is just like, this is insane. Like, what in the world just happened? And
my wife was the opposite of limp and close to death this time. She was like powerful and strong and pushed this baby up.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
good.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't like, I often think that our birth stories trickle into our motherhood and how we mother.
Yeah.
And I just feel happy thinking about like the trickle effect of this birth into your motherhood being such a powerful, like, healing, restorative one. Like, because can you imagine having to limp through motherhood with 4 children under 4 while also having another trauma to process?
Oh,
do you know? Because that slows you down. Like that.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's a heavy weight to carry while you're also in the throes of motherhood. And so, just how good of God to give you like something in your backpack this time to carry with you into motherhood that's like life-giving, and you can pull out of it like, I can do this. My body is capable. I am whole. Like, all these beautiful messages now that get to infiltrate your motherhood, right? I mean, do you feel that? Does it feel different mothering in the wake of a birth like this versus mothering in the wake of a difficult one?
In some ways, yes. In some ways, like, there's still trauma and still elements of those births that I'm reminded of on a pretty regular basis. Make parenting just have an extra layer. And if you want to cut this part out, you can, but I think I just need to share.
Please do.
So one of the things that I shared about my first birth is that they had to use a vacuum. And like, I knew that I didn't want interventions in birth because I know there can be lifelong complications from them. I didn't know until just after my oldest turned 3 what those complications would look like in his life. And I don't know for sure that this is because of the vacuum or because of his birth and the trauma in it, but he started having seizures just after he turned 3 and has had now 4 that we have witnessed, 3 before we started medication and 1 just a couple weeks ago as we're like transitioning to a different medication. Every time I like stop and think about it, I'm like, well, if his birth hadn't gone the way that it did, is this the story that we would be living? And I still like, I have to pull myself back to like, well, it did go the way that it went. And this is the story we're living. And I just have to like trust that God has a plan and a purpose in this. But like putting those pieces together of like, not that I tried to mother him differently because of his birth story, but I have to mother him differently because of his current reality. And then trying to like work through the story and the trauma with that in trying to parent the rest of my kids and trying to like, parenting is hard, and parenting after trauma is really hard. And parenting after trauma with a complicated medical diagnosis is like, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And so there are still days that I look at God and I'm like, what in the world are you doing? And why is this a part of my story? And why is this here? And why is this happening? Like, I did everything right. And especially with him, like, I was like, I did everything right. And why is this still happening? And and so trying to like reconcile that and reconcile like his birth and his story with his current reality. And then trying to not let that overshadow what I'm doing with the girls and trying to figure out like, is there something genetic to this that now I have to be worried about my other 3 kids? And is there something else that I need to be worried about? And like, and so I don't know, this past, like, what's it been, a year and a half since his first seizure, just under a year and a half since his first seizure. And it has, like, tried and stretched me in so many ways. And yeah, and it all goes back to that birth. It all goes back to, like, and I can't pinpoint it, but it is like, it is a likely cause, right? There is some damage in his brain that we have seen on an MRI, and very likely story is either the trauma of the seizure, if he was without oxygen,
like when you had a seizure,
when the trauma, from my seizure, when he was in my body, if he was deprived of oxygen, or the trauma of the vacuum, the failed, the like 3 pulls on his head, right? Like, and so. Yeah, like I don't know where to land with this, but just
you don't have a tidy
question
bow
about parenting, and like I don't have a nice tidy bow to wrap things up in. I have like this,
you're in the middle of
this ongoing story of just like, this traumatic birth. Like I don't get to just completely walk away from it and forget about it. Even with the redemptive healing last birth that I had, like it's still there, and there's still elements of it that I see and face and have to work through on a daily basis. And so like even with this beautiful redemptive story, there's still like this pain and this like questioning and trying to figure it out, and like, okay, God, like what is it, what now, what are we working through, what's going on? And like, our story over the last 5 years has just been like one thing after another, after another, after another. And so like, this redemptive birth is like this huge breath of fresh air in the middle of it. But it's like, it's not the only piece to my story.
Right. Well, it doesn't erase any of the other parts of your story. It shouldn't. I mean, those are parts of your story. And I'm like, trusting that God is a masterful weaver, that he's weaving all these parts together in some way that's ultimately going to be a beautiful tapestry. But at points, it's really hard to see what that, like, you can't yet discern what that beautiful pattern is, you know? And I actually really appreciate you being really real about that. The both and of like, yes, redemptive birth, that did heal some things, and we're still bleeding.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Yeah. And that's real. And that's probably most people's experience, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think there can be a tendency, and even in the way I phrased my last question, I may have like added to this feeling of like this tendency of like, all you need is one good birth and it's going to fix everything.
Yeah.
And that's just overly simplistic.
Yes.
Like, yes. And also, there's still stuff to deal with, and that doesn't go away.
And I think you had sent me something like shortly after I had the twins. I think I was even still in the hospital, and they were definitely still in the NICU. And you sent me something that said something to the extent of like, you can hold both grief and joy at the same time. And like how fitting that was then, but how fitting it still is now, of like holding the grief of the trauma and the pain and the difficult experiences at the same time as holding the joy of the beautiful babies that I have. Beautiful, not babies. None of them are babies anymore. It's crazy.
They are.
But the beautiful babies that I have, and the beautiful birth experience that I got to have, like I can hold both the sorrow and the grief, and like hold them both before the Lord, and hold them both in my hands, and just, this is what it is. And yeah.
100%. Like, God is not intimidated by those two things being held in tension with each other. Yeah.
It's something I've come back to like time and time and time again. It's just like, I can hold both the grief and the joy in this. And I can work through both the hard and the beautiful at the same time. So.
Thank you for the gift of your stories. Not only for me, just getting to hear them as your friend, but also for the listeners who are going to hear it. It's a truly precious gift. So thank you for giving that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This has been so fun, and so many tears, but also so fun.
If only I'd really had chocolate peanut butter cups still left in my drawer for us to eat. I offered her one, you guys, a little bit ago, and then I realized I didn't have any left. I was like, oh, okay. Fake out.
Just kidding.
Yeah. I guess before we hit stop on our recording, are there any little nuggets, like say a mom's listening to this who, let's say, has had a difficult birth and is pregnant again? What would you want to say to her? Putting you on the spot here.
I know, right? I think one thing is to just hold things loosely. You know, I talked about with my history of like, I went from like, why would anyone ever birth at home to like, I am only ever going to give birth at home. And then having the experiences that I did, I'm like, well, no, like I can plan for a home birth and I can plan for an intervention-free birth, but if something happens, I just need to hold this loosely before the Lord and say, like, you know what, your way and your plan and your will is better. I can tell you what I want, but ultimately, like, he's not like subject to our whims, right? Like, he's sovereign. And so just like, yeah, it is possible. And your body is amazing and capable of doing so much more than you think it is, but just hold it loosely and hold it before the Lord. And like, he may give you the most precious, beautiful, redemptive birth, but he also might not. And that's something that I really wrestled with after the twins were born, of like, I thought that he was going to give me this beautiful, precious, redemptive birth. Am I okay if he never does? And then he did, and it's beautiful and healing. But what if he never had? Like, I still have to hold on to that birth with all of the joy and all of the beauty that he did give me in it. And even the first birth, all of the joy and all of the beauty and all of the good that he did in it, even in the midst of all of the hard. So yeah, just holding things a little bit more loosely and holding them before the Lord and just saying, I'm here, I'm your servant, I'm ready and I'm prepared and I'm willing, but also like, do what you will. So that's a good word. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Holy Wild Birth. We hope that you were genuinely encouraged, inspired, and challenged by what you heard today. If you're loving what you hear, please make sure that you share it. Leave reviews. That helps other mamas find this content as well. And don't forget to read the show notes, okay? Because that's where you can find our email address if you want to reach out to us and start a conversation. It's also where you'll find free offerings as well as invitations to work with me and or Lauren. We can't wait to get to know you. See you next week.